Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think it's afternoon, so good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Paul,
Yeah.
Rosalind, Candy, and everyone who's on this fantastic conference. I think it's quite interesting in terms of some of the insights and experiences that are coming through. I think there's no sharing that is not as valuable as what we're doing here today. I'll just maybe some of the things I'll supplement because Candy and Rosalind have also spoken a lot about it. My name is Clifford Machoka. I'm the head of external affairs and marketing at Nation Media Group. I have an interesting background, so I'm a lawyer by profession and an international trade lawyer by profession. And my career sort of moved from private practice here in Kenya to the World Trade Organization in Geneva, where I went for my traineeship in international trade law, and came back more than 10 years ago, where I joined British American Tobacco, where I was their corporate affairs manager, handling East African community, COMESA, and the AU in terms of their engagements. And I've moved from, when I was in BAT, moved from corporate affairs to what you call commercial engagement. And commercial engagement is being in charge of excise or tax engagements for 12 countries across Africa. And then moved to communications. And in 2016, then moved to Nation Media Group. Quite a change from an FMCG to a media company, where every single day is a very different day than what we know and realize. And at Nation, I started as the head of corporate and regulatory affairs, with my role spanning in terms of reputation management, communications, what you can call investor relations, as well as external internal communication. And it is only up to this year, in July, that my role was then expanded to take up marketing. So my role now includes everything that I was doing in corporate and regulatory affairs, which also includes partnerships, to brand and commercial marketing, which then moved the business so it fits to change the name of the department to external affairs and marketing. And therefore, I don't have marketing as, I didn't go to school to do marketing, but marketing is in the blood and comes as a part of experience. I'll just speak to the journey of Nation Media Group. I think I want to skip the definition of branding because I think Rosalind and Caroline have spoken to it, and I would agree with them that branding is not about a logo. Branding is actually about your value set. It's about building a relationship with the customer. And I think they've spoken to that. And I would rather focus more on the journey that Nation Media Group went through to do what we did. First of all, you'll be shocked. It is not a rebrand. It is not a refresh. And therefore, it's something very new. What Nation Media Group went through is actually a turning point. And what we were doing is launching a new digital brand. So it's a completely new digital brand called Nation.Africa. A rebrand would have meant that we changed our name from Nation Media Group to Nation.Africa, and we still maintain our corporate name. And what was the reason? Remember, Nation has been in existence for 60 years. And the 60 years, when we were established 60 years ago, we were established to be the voice of the voiceless. We were established to be a mission, a champion of the ordinary person, a trusted partner to emerging democracies in Africa. At that time, 60 years ago, the African, as we know it then, or they were called natives, did not have a voice. And most of the media across Africa were actually owned by the colonialists. And Nation Media Group then came to be that voice of Africa. And as we've gone through, one of the things that then happened is to be able to be authentic to that voice and to be authentic to that mission. Our mission is actually to transform lives positively, which is Sort of the same thing that I heard Rosalind speak and the same thing that Candy spoke. So, and this mission has remained the same for the last 60 years because we're a public watchdog and our work is to be able to be there in public interest. When we looked at, in terms of why do this new digital brand, I think over the years, remember we started as a small newspaper, a Kiswahili newspaper, then moved to Daily Nation, and at some point in our lives, sort of expanded into a multimedia media house. One of the realizations that we had is that whilst we continuously building trust amongst our audiences, and that trust is then transcended through various platforms, most of our audiences or our users had actually wholeheartedly moved mobile, social, and because of that move to mobile and social, one of the things that we started asking ourselves is that how do we ensure we can still deliver our mission and we can still deliver highly quality content to them wherever, however, and whenever they are, and at their point of convenience. And I think it is this new age consumers that enabled us to now shift our gears into what now we call Nation.Africa. And therefore Nation.Africa came at the turn of this new digital sort of age. And one of the things that we did over a long period of time, and I think all of us in this conference will attest to it, is most of the time we talk digital, but we do not act digital. And we do that for over a long period of time. Every company will tell you, yeah, we're really going digital. But when you come at the back end, our services, how we deliver our products is not digital as such. And I think sometimes that could be with Nation. We, at the turn of the 2000s, there was a lot of talk of digital, as a Nation was the first media house in Eastern Central Africa to come up with a website, a media website. But, was that really, over time, we started asking ourselves, is digital really being, and that's only one element, is it really being digital? And we started asking ourselves that we need to now move from talking to actually acting. And Nation.Africa then sort of was that opportune moment in terms of ensuring that we move. If we look at Nation.Africa, and the reason why we moved from nation.co.ke is nation.co.ke was in a sense Daily Nation. And that's where you can see how the masthead was there. And whereas one of the things we started asking ourselves is that our vision as Nation Media Group is to be the media of Africa for Africa. And the question is, how do we become the media of Africa for Africa? When you go even on the internet and when you go digital, you still see Daily Nation, which is predominantly Kenyan, and you do not see an Africa-centric or an Africa-led brand. And Nation.Africa then came to be able to take, to leave that vision of being the media of Africa for Africa. It's taken a long time, and that's one of the things you learn about branding and rebranding, that it's not something that happens overnight. It is something that takes a lot of people to come together, brand strategy. But for us, what was important was to ensure that we were going into the next phase of Nation Media Group. And that next phase of Nation Media Group was to be a modern digital content company. So we were moving from being a legacy publisher, which I think a lot of people always know us to be, into being a digital content company. And for us, a digital content company meant that we were then looking at content beyond news. I think a lot of people know us as a news company, but there are content which include cars, lifestyle, which is way beyond news, and that is the direction we want to be. So when you look at the force behind it, the force of change was pretty much digital transformation and our consumers moving digital. When you look at what you can call, what are the elements that you need to change? I agree that it is not the logo. And you could remove Daily Nation, and someone else should be able to come and say, this is still Nation Media Group. But what is important is almost three things. One is there's definitely an aspect around the overall business strategy. What are you trying to achieve? What is the next phase of your growth? What does that next phase of your growth entail? And does this rebrand or branding align to that next phase of your growth? Just spoken that our next phase of our growth was in digital and was to become a modern digital content company. And that necessitated us to change our strategy from what we had 3 years ago to say, look, our strategy will be linked to two things. One is value, that we should be able to create value to our customers, to our shareholders, to our consumers. And the second was growing our content business. And growing content business was then looking at growing beyond just news content. And the underlying or the underpinning sort of enablers was then people, okay, technology, and what you can call sort of a digital facing. And therefore you would see the way we launched Nation.Africa. If you go back, you would see that's why we launched it using augmented reality. Even the way you launch your brand must be in a way that you are communicating that there's something different to what you're doing. Now, we didn't want to launch the brand just the way we do launches and you have confetti. I think for us, what is very important was the essence of that launch needed to communicate to the future of what Nation.Africa seeks to achieve. So one, brand strategic outlook of your business or organization, very important. Secondly, culture. Remember the famous phrase that culture eats strategy for breakfast. There's no way you do a rebrand or a brand without have a real look at your culture, putting in place some form of change management. For the last 3 to 5 years, we've gone through a vigorous change management process of asking ourselves that if we are to become a modern digital content company, then what are the values? What is the culture that Nation Media Group needs to put in place to be able to take this business to the future? Yeah. And thirdly is, yes, you then have to look at the outward elements like the logo, the colors. One of the feedbacks we receive is that you guys really have very vibrant colors and very different colors. And we're not sure whether it's green, it's yellow. And that was very deliberate. And the reason why it was very deliberate is, remember, this is a company that has been there for 60 years. A lot of people say you guys are too old, you're boring. And one of the things that we started asking ourselves is that how do we ensure that this brand attracts, your 18 to 25-year-olds? And that also goes to how you bring it into the market. And that's why you can see even the way the brand looks. It has vibrant colors. It uses sans serif, and sans serif is a very vibrant sort of font. And in that way, then we're able to use. Now, why Africa? Because first 6 years ago, we were formed to be that. But also the reason why we use the word empower Africa was the brand seeks to be able to play a critical role in the transformation of this continent. In terms of, we want to position this brand to tell the story of Africa and to also tell this story globally. So from Africa to the world, but we also want to be able to tell the world, to tell Africa the story of the world. So it's inward and outward, which means that we're able to take global stories, turn them into, position them in a way that our audiences in Africa are able to consume them. Yeah. And then I think there's the aspect of what are some of the successes and challenges. I think we saw a lot of successes in terms of just our digital numbers going up. One of the things that we are doing with Nation.Africa, and maybe some of us may not be aware, is being able to create sort of a branded house as opposed to a house of brands. And it's important for us because when you look at Nation, I'm sure you can see more than 20, 25 brands. You can see Daily Nation, you see NTV, you see Mwananchi in Uganda, you see NTV Uganda, you see in Tanzania, you see Daily Monitor in Uganda, Mwananchi in Tanzania. And one of the things then we started this journey is to be able to say, how do we create, bring most of our brands, might not be all, but how do we bring most of our brands under Nation.Africa? Yeah. Why is it important? Leveraging on those numbers is very important for us because we are then able to monetize digital. The reason why we also launched this brand is to enable monetization of the digital platform, which is very difficult for media houses, but it's something that we told ourselves that we must go into. And that's why if you go to Nation.Africa, you would see that there's a lot of registrations in terms of bringing you into the Nation Prime sort of membership. And over time, our plan is to be able to move what you call occasionals, people who come onto your website maybe once a month or once 2 weeks, and move them into what you can actually call fanatics or super fans. And that's the journey that we have started with Nation.Africa, being able to move that. And you can see the positioning of how we're doing our communication on Nation.Africa is there. But also ensuring that we are, I think 2 weeks ago, you may have seen that we've launched the first podcast service in Eastern Central Africa by a media house, as in a lot of podcast service by people, by individuals. And the reason for that is just to ensure that over time, we are increasing our offerings and positioning the brand to be an innovative and agile brand in this market that a lot of people can take advantage of. I think the key challenge that we saw is being able to carry people along, very important. Most of the time we think marketing is the department that should do branding, rebranding, and therefore it starts sitting in that corner office. And I think one of the things that we saw, and we tried our best to do it, is being able to carry all the departments along, being able to carry staff and employees and colleagues along. You do not do that, your brand will suffer a lot, because one of the things you start suffering is that you're not creating internal ambassadors. You're also not creating an opportunity for your own colleagues to understand the reason why. The reason why is very important, because if tomorrow I'm having a beer with you and I don't come from marketing, I come from production, and you have a discussion with me and you ask me, okay, so I'm seeing you're doing this new thing. And actually Clifford tells you, I don't know that thing. That thing was done by management. You know what that starts doing? It starts alienating brand. And that's one of the key challenges. Another key challenge was just ensuring cross-functional collaboration. You cannot launch a brand alone, whether you like it or not. And I think for us that was very important. And I think the other thing was just the challenge of sometimes the market being able to receive your brand. We're known to be a very serious, conservative brand. And I think when people saw yellow, green, purple, they started wondering, who the hell is this brand, and why have we gone through this change? But one thing we did then is, for a whole month, we did what you call an A/B testing, where we invited the public to be able to come and test Nation.Africa for a whole month. And that whole month, one of the key important things we're doing is collecting feedback, being able to share with them their change. Why are we doing this? What is the rationale? So I think that is important. I think my biggest lesson personally is that rebranding is good. Branding or brand refresh is good. The one thing that you should never lose when you're doing a brand refresh or rebranding is never lose the essence of who you are. Do not lose your value set. I think for us, you will see that, yes, you still have Nation.Africa, but a value set of being the voice of the voiceless, of being the champion of ordinary person, of being the trusted partner to I keep on wondering whether we still have emerging democracies or whether we're democracies, but that's a debate. And being an advocate of free market economies has not changed. And I think for me, that is the biggest lesson. Don't change your value set and who you are. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Cliff. That's really